In the last section, we set up our boilerplate project and installed dependencies for it. I took the liberty of running npm start just to build our package here, and I opened it up in the browser and visited localhost 8080 just to make sure that everything is still working, and it looks like it is just fine. So with our default project set up here, let's talk about one of the core topics behind Redux, which is reducers. So Redux contains a lot of pretty fancy sounding terminology, like reducers. So let's just cut the fancy language here and use plain simple English to explain what it is. A reducer is a function that returns a piece of the application state. That's it. It's just a function. It returns a piece of the application state. Because our application can have many different pieces of state, we can have many different reducers. So let's think about our book app diagram here. Our application state has two pieces, the list of books and the currently selected book. So we can have two different reducers for this. One reducer would be responsible for producing the list of books, and the other would be responsible for producing the currently selected book. Just to reiterate again that our application state is a plain JavaScript object, let's look at a slightly different diagram. So again, here's our application state, represented by this big overall object, and it has two keys, two pieces of state, books and active book. The books piece of state will be produced by one reducer called the books reducer, and the active book piece of state is produced by another reducer called the active book reducer. So again, reducers produce the value of our state. The keys can really be whatever we want. Instead of saying books, this could be books list or, library books or whatever. All that really matters, or the only thing that the reducer is really concerned about, is the value of the state here. In general, we have, again, just to reiterate, we have got a one-to-one pairing here. So key of state, value of state, where value of state is produced by the books reducer. Okay, so enough diagrams. Let's give a shot at writing our books reducer. So think about what we're going to do here. We're going to write a function that produces the value of our state. So it should really, at the end of the day, just produce an array of objects, where each object is just the title of a book. Then the value of that reducer, or that function, should be assigned to the key books on our state. So let's give this a shot. I'm in my code editor here, and inside the source directory, I'm going to find the reducers directory, and inside of there, I'm going to make a new file called reducer_books.js. In Redux apps, I really like prepending the name of a lot of files with the type of file it is. Even though it's already in the reducers folder, obviously it's got to be a reducer, but the reality is that once we've got a lot of different, if we've got an application and it's working with books, we might end up with a lot of different files that have the word books in the title. So I find it to be a lot easier to kind of narrow down the file I'm searching for by prepending the type of file it is, like so. But this is totally something, totally my personal convention. It's up to you. If you want to just call it books, totally fine, up to you. Okay, so let's start off by just writing our simple function that's just going to return an array of books. We'll say function, and we'll return an array. And these will be a couple of different books. I'm just going to copy paste here to save a little time. We'll just say we've got 4 books. And the first title will say JavaScript, the good parts. We'll say Harry Potter. I know it's not really a title, but oh well. The Dark Tower, and Eloquent Ruby. Okay, so here's our reducer. Just a function, and it returns a piece of our application state, a list of books. Now, to make use of this reducer anywhere else within our project, we need to make sure that we export this function. So at before the function, we'll write export default. Now, any other file inside of our project can import this file and it will just automatically receive the books reducer. All right, so a reducer is really, creating one in our application is really a two-step process. Step one is to actually create the reducer. Step two is to wire it into our application. So just, obviously writing a function here doesn't really wire anything up for us. It's only half the game. So step two is to wire it up to our application. We'll do this inside of index.js. So I'm going to open up index.js. And once inside of here, as a part of the boilerplate project, we've already got this value inside of here where state is, state. We're just going to go ahead and delete this out of here, like so. So let's look back at our diagram here real quick. We've got a key of books, and the value is the output of the books reducer. The way that we're set up right here with this function called combine reducers, this is really the mapping of our state right here. So if we say books is books reducer, like so, that's what gives us, this same kind of mapping. So we've got books, and the value is the books reducer right here. There's a lot of code in here, the combine reducers from Redux and this root reducer and all this kind of whatnot in here. We're definitely going to run through this, but for this first example, we're just going to kind of glaze over it a little bit so we can get a taste of how reducers work in general. And we're definitely going to come back through here in a future section and make sure we explain this combine reducers function at length. Before we go any farther, we do have to import the books reducer into this file as well. I'm actually going to capitalize books reducer as well. So we got capital B, books, capital R reducer. Then we'll import books reducer from the current directory. So we'll use /reducer books. Cool. This looks good. Okay, so that's a lot of talking for a tiny amount of code, right? We got a reducer, some key for it, it's just an object, blah, 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 something function. And heck, how do we even test this, right? How do we even know if we're going down the right path here? Good question. Let's go ahead and answer that in the next section.